Big question that comes up on my consulting calls with clients is there guys who want to live a life of freedom, abundance, low taxes, better dating options, better value for money here in Eastern Europe, is how to structure their visa-free residency and citizenship strategies, in particular in light of the Russo-Ukrainian war. Standing here, I'm actually just walking slowly here in Odessa on the shores of the Black Sea. You see behind me the Odessa Opera House. Actually, there are still performances going on in this summer of 2023, yes, in spite of the war. So in this video, I'm going to outline to you the strategies that I have been compiling with my consulting clients about how to deal with this issue in light of the Russo-Ukrainian war. Поехали!
SAR Experience.
So the first strategy is the most obvious for most visitors to Eastern Europe, and that is to use your visa-free allowances strategically to live and travel in the region. Now, the rule of thumb is in most places with a Western passport, you will get 90 days visa-free every 180. Now, visa-free means you show up at the border and you do not need a visa. Sometimes people start talking about, their visa allowance or something, but as a former lawyer, I like to be precise about these things. It is visa-free. You do not need a visa. So, for example, maybe you would like to spend time here in Ukraine. It's 90 days every 180 visa-free. You come here for 90 days and then you go to, say, neighboring Moldova, where you again have 90 days every 180 visa-free. So you could actually go between those two countries all year round and use your visa-free allowances. Now, in this region, you have a little bit more nuance. You have Kazakhstan, where you actually have to leave the country every 30 days. You have the European Union, and most of the European Union is in the Schengen area, which is a common travel area where you have 90 days every 180, but it is for the entire area and not per member state. In most cases, there are some nuances with that I work on with my clients, in particular American clients, where it might be possible to stay in a member state for more than 90 every 180 days. If you're interested actually in a more bespoke approach, down below in description is a link to my consulting services, and we can dive a little bit deeper on your particular case. Also, in the past, some countries considered you two different legal people if you had two citizenships. That's not very common nowadays as far as I know, but again, something to be aware of. And if you are an EU citizen, of course, then 90 days every 180 does not apply to you in the Schengen area, because as an EU citizen, you can live, work, travel in any of the European Union member states with your EU citizenship, which is why getting an EU passport or EU citizenship, passport is obviously the travel document. Once you're a citizen, that is why it is so attractive, because then you don't have to worry about this 90 days every 180 and you can work and do everything you want, right? So it is the old classic in this region to use the 90 days every 180 and split up your time between the different countries that you're interested in. But of course, if you actually want to stay in one of the countries or just in the Schengen area for longer than 90 days every 180, then you'll probably need to get residency, which is the next thing. So there are many ways to get residency through a visa as an immigrant to a country in Eastern Europe. Now, the most popular country, probably on average before the 2022 escalation in the Russo-Ukrainian war, was here in Ukraine. I help many clients move here and get their residency, either temporary or permanent. Unfortunately, many of them have decided to leave. Obviously, the risk factor to your safety being in a country of war is obviously quite elevated compared to normal peacetime situation. I'm here. I'm fine with the current risk level in Ukraine. It is July 2023 when I'm shooting this. I grew up in Ireland. We had obviously a low intensity conflict or war in Northern Ireland in particular. When I was younger, here the threat level of Russian terrorism, even if you're away from the front lines, is quite elevated. So just be cognizant of that if you decide to come here, whether it's for travel purposes or to get residency. And there are many ways that you become get a visa to become a resident. They may be through study, work, opening a business and being an entrepreneur, investing, and actually through marriage or by having a child from the country. So there were the ways that were very popular here in Ukraine before 2022. And in fact, residency can often be the first step on the path to becoming a citizen in a new country for you in Eastern Europe. And that is the next topic we will discuss, getting a second citizenship and how that can play into your strategy here for living in Eastern Europe. So getting a second citizenship, probably the most publicized way is actually by first becoming a resident by investment and then later on acquiring the nationality, and then you get your travel document, which is the passport. Now, one of the most common ways, most popular ways, most marketed ways is to get a citizenship in the Caribbean. There are a few Caribbean island nations that offer citizenship by investment, and they have visa-free access to a lot of different countries across the world. So there could be a combination there that might work for you. Just be aware that there is a possibility that in the future, many of these citizenship by investment program nations in the Caribbean may lose their visa-free access to many countries because, for example, the Schengen area, the European Union in general is not impressed by the fact that they give out their passports maybe willy-nilly to many people who may be sanctioned, for example, or from countries that currently are not viewed in a favorable light, for example, Russia. And that has happened actually. Another nation that's not in the Caribbean, which is Vanuatu, they have lost their visa for access to Schengen, and some of these Caribbean islands are under pressure to do better due diligence, so that's not clear. Also, countries within Europe like Serbia, where if you invest and get residency, then currently citizenship, when I looked it up, it seemed to take about 8 years, but there is a proposal to reduce that. But again, will they keep their visa-free access to Schengen if they actually make it easier? Not clear at the moment. So just realize that when you invest and get the citizenship, that maybe in the future you won't have as much visa-free access as you have now. It has worked for some of my clients in the past, particularly they were from countries like Bolivia, where they didn't have very much visa-free access. It was a pain to travel everywhere in Eastern Europe, whether it was to Schengen or even to Ukraine. They needed to go and get a visa, or at least an electronic visa in order to enter. It takes time, hassle, money to set up. So there it can definitely be of advantage. You can, of course, also look at getting the citizenship in the region itself. So get an Eastern European passport. The one that was most popular in the past for my clients was here in Ukraine, just like the residency. And actually by marriage, you could get it relatively quickly. You didn't even have to invest. You may end up investing at the end of the day, but with the divorce rate like it is in Ukraine, it's over 50%. But yeah, that would actually reduce the number of years of residency in order to apply for citizenship. It's actually down to 2. That was the most popular in the region. Again, just beware of a few things, especially with the Russia-Ukrainian war, that if you become a citizen, you may be required to do military service. If you're a guy, you might be prevented from leaving the country. That has been happening around the region. You may have problems traveling, opening bank accounts, especially if you're Russian, across the world as a result because of sanctions against the country because of the war. So there are a lot of potential downsides if you try to get citizenship within the region as a second nationality. If you're comfortable with those constraints, then it might also be an advantage to go and look at that. The most popular I get with clients, though, is actually citizenship by descent. That's because if you get a European Union passport, then you automatically live everywhere else in the European Union, plus you have the visa-free for the other countries. So, for example, if you're Bolivian, getting a Spanish passport would make a lot of sense because you'd solve that problem. And the most popular countries were my own home country, Ireland. Ireland has an enormous diaspora, and in particular, many Americans and many Brits, they actually have an Irish granny or a great-grandparent who's from Ireland, so you can apply for citizenship by descent In Ireland, it's actually back to great-grandparents, potentially is as far as back as you can go at the moment. It can be anywhere in the island. It can also include Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. Also very popular is Italy, because Italy actually goes back all the way to the creation of Italy as a state in the 19th century, the mid-19th century. So there you have a lot of scope and a lot of people, in particular in the Americas, who can apply for Italian citizenship. So they're the two most popular ones to go for. And just to close out this point about getting an European Union passport, there are some candidate countries for the European Union that will potentially join in the future. Those candidate countries currently are Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, Bosnia, Ukraine, Turkey, Moldova, and North Macedonia. I don't think I left anyone else out there. And there's actually two potential candidate countries, not officially candidate countries yet, but there are plans to give them candidate status for joining the EU, and they are Kosovo and Georgia. So realistically speaking, as a former lawyer at the European Union institutions, I can say that only Montenegro has a really good perspective, say in the next 5 years of joining the European Union. It may even join in 2025, but don't hold your breath, because these things tend in general, looking at the history of other countries that have joined the European Union, tend to get delayed more rather than accelerated in general. So one of my clients is actually becoming a Montenegrin citizen at the moment, because that has the advantage of visa-free to the same countries in addition to his American passport. Also has some others. Obviously, the allure of visa-free to Russia is not as strong as it would have been 3 or 4 years ago, but you do have a bit extra visa-free scope with a Montenegrin passport and the prospect of it becoming a European Union passport in the near future. The others, unfortunately, I would be surprised if they become full members of the European Union before 2030, because normally the accession process takes at least 10 years. North Macedonia, for example, I think has already been a candidate country for like 18. Serbia has been for over 10 as well, and they are quite a way away. Let me just pull this up. And they are both quite a way away from joining the European Union. I would say Serbia is in danger of going further away on its accession process than it has advanced so far. Just public opinion there doesn't seem to coincide with meeting the criteria for joining the European Union, unfortunately. Unless there's big political change there, I don't see that happening. So Ukraine, for example, has become a candidate country, but reality is it only just became a candidate country, and even if it were faster than expected, it would be hard to see that happening to full completion before 2030, because that would only be like 7-8 years as a candidate country. And that would be very fast, judging by how that process works in the last, say, 20 years. So that is about getting the second citizenship. Also another part of your strategy potentially for living a lifestyle with more abundance, potentially lower taxes. I should have said that actually here in Ukraine. Another reason maybe to become a resident here is the fact that at the moment there is a thing called a FOP, which is Fizyczna Osoba Підприємство, and it's like being a small business, and actually you only pay 2% tax on turnover. It's not profit, it is turnover tax. That will last actually only for, I think, a couple of weeks more, and then it will be back to the 5%. They did reduce it with the Russo-Ukrainian war. So there you go. Probably the lowest tax rate for many people who maybe like a YouTuber, for example, or someone who works in IT. It's going to be quite attractive. Not many overheads, mainly turnover, and you can legitimately pay 5% tax on that. So I have many clients, or I've had in the past, who were involved in crypto trading, and what they tell me is that actually Ukraine is one of the best kept secrets for crypto. It's actually one of the best countries if you have a lot of crypto. United Arab Emirates does a very good job marketing itself as the capital for crypto, but actually they told me that they actually think Ukraine's a little bit better in reality, in practice, when you actually live off your crypto investments. So that is potentially also part of your strategy. So that's the whole shebang. If you want a lifestyle of greater abundance, potentially lower taxes, potentially being able to use your crypto easier, potentially having a better dating life, potentially getting better value for money, potentially also greater freedom, even better safety, ironically. If you live somewhere that's high petty crime, for example, that's something that's not very common in most of Eastern Europe, then you should be considering spending part of the year in Eastern Europe. Now, I'm known as the insider for Eastern Europe by my former clients, because I've been here on and off for over a decade. Also known as the Special Forces by some of my other clients for here in Eastern Europe. And I have been helping clients, with my consulting, as I already mentioned, but also they come and live an in-person experience with me. It is the first step for many of them on their journey to living that dream lifestyle here in the region. And with the Russia-Ukraine war, I am not bringing clients currently to Russia, obviously Belarus, and not here currently to Ukraine, but hopefully sometime soon that will be possible once again, and more realistic. And we focus things around a credible long weekend of painting the town red, partying with the super beautiful, having a VIP experience here in Eastern Europe. So the 4 cities that I'm currently bringing clients to are Almaty, the Almighty, the former capital of Kazakhstan in the south of the country. Absolutely phenomenal place, particularly in summer and in autumn, where I've been most recently with my clients. I'm actually about to head off again to Kazakhstan for probably another month this summer. Been pretty phenomenal down there, or over there to the east of where I am right now. Also been heading up the road, particularly in the summer of 22, made a great vlog from Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Mad Moldova, crazy Chisinau was also top in the last year or so. Riga, the capital of Latvia in the Schengen area, also a great place to set up in. I think it's one of the, probably if you like Legally Bonds, the tallest people in Europe are in the Baltics more or less, also the blondest, so really, really great spot. Had an amazing week there with my client already in 2023. And finally we have Warsaw, the capital of Poland. Obviously, Poland is becoming, it's becoming a really big emerging power in Eastern Europe, and its capital is potentially going to be a capital of basically the eastern part of the European Union and Europe itself. In terms of the party scene and the dating scene, also pretty attractive for the single guys, because it has got the cute Ukrainians, the beautiful Belarusians who've come en masse in the last few years, and also, of course, the native pretty Poles. So, been living it up there with my clients as well. And if you think you are suitable, then down below is an application to the Zara Experience. First of all, before you fill that out, please go and look at some of the playlists I'm going to put up in cards, also down below in the description. I'll give you a better idea, better flavor of what the Zara Experience involves. We have one playlist that outlines the cities that I mentioned, also some former cities that I went to in times past with clients, and also then we have the set of tutorials for dating the 9s and 10s, the super beautiful of Eastern Europe. I like those up above and down below in the description to this video. On that note, I will leave you from Odessa, Ukraine. Slava Ukraini, Rom Slava, do Permogi. See you in the next video.
Zara Experience.